and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the November 7th St. Mary's Commission regular meeting. At the beginning of the meetings, I like to remind people, please, you're more than welcome to address the commission if you'd like to, so please come to the podium and keep your comments, I'd like them to be clear, concise, and courteous. I'm intrigued by the number of people. I wonder what sort of thing we're talking about here tonight that's of interest. The first thing we need to look at is the appropriation ordinance number 1217. And just FYI, I was asking Andrea about those are travel costs for our newly graduated police officer, in case you're wondering.
Is that for Matthew Road?
Yeah. Traveled over 4,000 miles back and forth. And nothing else stood out to me. Questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
The Rolling Meadows, Maurice?
We probably, that's where we haul our sludge from our sewer plant to. It's
Oh,
a
okay.
disposal place north of Topeka.
Got it.
Anything else? So the appropriation ordinance, do I have a motion to approve the appropriation ordinance 1217 as presented?
I so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, so that's approved as presented. The next item is to review the minutes from last meeting.
No objection here.
Richard? I know that you were supposed to have gotten a specific mention for something, but I think Maurice left you out. Do you remember? I remember.
I like to be left alone.
Another chance. So, as presented? Yeah, we approve those as presented, thank you. And then, do we have any agenda items to add? Yes.
An update on the levy or
On
college
the mowing,
the ditch?
I think that's a simple question, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't,
It's in the works. It's getting the gentleman over here.
yeah, I don't know, Bob, do you know anything about that, Bob, in particular?
No, Dan was looking into that, working on it.
Sorry, we don't have a lot
That's
of
okay,
details.
that's okay.
Okay. Anything else, Maurice? No. Okay, so the first, agenda item, letter A, the 2024 library lease agreement. And the note that Maurice gave us was, we had planned to, increase that, but apparently we didn't tell them.
They'd asked to know if you're gonna increase the rent by a certain date. You didn't have the answer from them by that time, and I didn't tell one until recently. And you decided on like increasing it by $50 a month, I believe.
Does it have to go under that 90-day rule?
I don't think so. It's just Mr. Seneca, or no, Mr. Miller, Dennis Miller and I spoke about it. And I just think you should, at the first meeting of the year, decide if there's gonna be a slight increase or not, and not wait for the budget cycle.
Okay.
That way,
Mr. Mayor, I got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before we get into the lease, this kind of ties in with it. I met with Bill Flanagan and Dennis Miller about the library, and I don't know, maybe we just lump it all together and give you a little recap of that meeting, and we can do it all together. And so they have their advisory board. They've been doing some good work. They've gotten 12 books, is that right, Bill, or 13? 12? 12 books that have been removed from the St. Mary's Library at the with the work that this committee is doing. We met for almost an hour, Bill and Dennis and I. I had a few questions for him, but Bill actually, he touched on most everything I was interested in before I even had a chance to ask. I'm very impressed with the whole library staff and their advisory board. I think they're doing a good job. They're going in the right direction. Is it a perfect world? Probably not. I mean, I don't think not gonna make everybody happy all the time, but I think what they're doing is good. And I think, keep doing what you guys are doing. And I'll be more than happy to sit in whenever I can.
Okay, so the specific question is, well, it's a two-part question. Do we want to renew the lease? And do we want to forego, I think that the question is, do we want to forego increasing the rent simply because we didn't really give them time to plan for it? Which frankly, I think is fair, the $50 a month.
Yeah, it's not gonna, I agree. I don't think it's gonna break anything.
Okay, and we'll be a little more timely with that. I mean, but, so are we in a position to take a motion to renew the lease? Or it's under the same conditions, annual, single
It's
year?
the same version, just updated dates.
So do I have a motion to renew the lease for the library for the year 2024 with no increase to the lease amount?
I so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And all in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Well, that wasn't very much drama. No one wants to. All right. I would just second, I appreciate that, fine. I appreciate the, working together. That was the question in the first place, really. Why don't we work as a community? It looks like we're doing that, so that's a win. Thanks. Same kind of thing, 2024, agenda item B, museum lease agreement. All we're changing there is the dates, correct, Maurice? Any questions or concerns? Okay, do I have a motion to approve, to renew the museum lease agreement for 2024?
I so move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed, so yes, good. Next item on the agenda is armory rental for Bells of St. Mary's, which is a Friday, Saturday request. And to waive the fee, basically. I didn't see the typical request
I'm
for
for the alcohol.
what about that?
Did they, yeah.
Don't they wanna serve alcohol? Yeah, okay, good, we expect that, if that's the.
So I don't know about the alcohol, they did not inform me on that, I think Alex Hall would be the one that's in charge of that. But they were looking for rent-free from the armory, and, actually, because you're like, doesn't matter, shouldn't you know this?
I'm gonna recuse myself.
And I think they're looking to get the key on the 30th, I think is the other thing that they were wanting to do for the evening, because they want to give the band time to practice. And then the only other things I had were for the street closings.
Yeah, that's kind of a, could you go into that a little bit, please?
So yeah, so they were looking to get Main Street closed off for the parade. Starts at 6 p.m. on December 2nd. So they're looking to get the north and south side of Bertrand closed off for no parking. So that way it's open for the parade, and then closing 5th Street from Bertrand to the park.
Is the parade gonna take the same route that the one did in the summer?
Yep, yeah.
So kind of a voluntary thing with the vehicles again, right, chief? We're not gonna force anybody to move?
I know a few meetings ago, they requested the same arrangement as red, white, and blue. But I think along the same lines, then yes, we'll try and see how much compliance we can get imposed beforehand. So correct, yeah.
And I think 5th Street from Bertrand to the park was for the horse-drawn carriage, I want to say, so that was for, and since we'll have people walking along that for, that was included at the armory, in Bertrand to the park.
As long as we don't force, you're gonna start towing vehicles, I'm fine with it.
So do I have, do we need a motion for this? Really,
Just do a consensus of.
Yeah. consensus to, let the, I don't know, what's the name of the organization?
Experience St. Mary's.
Experience St. Mary's use the Armory rental free, picking up the key on the 30th. And also shut down or remove, cars for shutting down the streets for the parade. Consensus? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes, thank you.
I just have two things real quick. We do still need an application completed, if you can pass that on to whoever does that, and then, our employee dinner is the following day, so, it does have to be picked up before Sunday.
For something.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
The next item, on the agenda is Tri-County Refuse. Christie, did you wanna?
Hello, guys, how are you? It's been a while. Yeah, I'm back. Having a little trouble with time change, but you know, I think probably everybody is. Now, you're supposed to have one of these in your packet.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys have all looked at it. Were you aware of it before you found it in your packets? That's why I'm here. I don't know, since we don't get newspapers anymore, there's a lot of stuff I don't ever know about. And of course, I know about this because of the landfill. But yes, there is gonna be a large increase at the landfill in our hauling contract. My original plan was to leave everything the way it's been and not change a thing, but this has forced my hand a little bit. But I'm still gonna try to keep it as reasonable as possible for the bid. Because we love coming up here. What would I do if I didn't get to come see you guys once in a while, really? But that is really all I wanted to do. I wanted to make you aware of what was going on in our community and in the Potawatomi County landfill. Any questions or anything? All right. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you.
you.
Bet.
The next item on the agenda is the golf course. And I don't know that we do have any comment from anyone. The last thing was,
Last meeting was public and private parades, and then there was questions of whether, the operation of it had to be open bid to other types of things. And then, of course, several people spoke and had different ideas for the course instead of a course. But I'm not sure if there's anything to discuss tonight necessarily.
As far as the bidding, if there's somebody that wants to, if a company or organization or an individual wants to bid on, as a golf course, I'm more than willing to do that. Any other use, I think, until to me is irrelevant right now. I don't see why we would pursue a different type of use for the property other than the golf course. That's in my opinion. So if we need to put it out to bid, there was a question that, are there any legal issues about bidding it?
I had the city attorney look, I looked, it doesn't appear to be anything in our code book, and there's nothing in the statutes that we could find. The only thing that we've ever done is in 2014 or 15, there's a resolution about anything over $25,000, but, you know, we'd seek bids then, but I have the authority to waive that, so I don't think that's in play here. So bottom line, we've looked and I couldn't see anything about any sort of requirement.
and yet he recommended that we do it.
Well, the city attorney doesn't say you shouldn't, he just says you don't have to. If you wanted to decide to open it up to have people bid stuff, there's nothing wrong with that either.
And
Go ahead.
well, I just, my takeaway from last meeting was a little bit different from yours, I guess, because I think that looking at how feasible it would be to reinvigorate the golf course is a significant question that we need to look into, including how much we'd have to borrow and what the payments would be. But it seemed to me that the discussion broadened to where we, at least for me, I wanna look at it more holistically and say, what is the recreational, what do we wanna provide for the community? And not just assume that the answer is a golf course. I think we want to look at, absolutely, because that's what we started this whole thing with, that question a few months ago, but Because if we look at the cost of the golf course and it says, and we say, well, that's not really reasonable, we're still left with that question, which you yourself asked, and it's a good question, okay, now what are we gonna do with that land? So it seems to me we should look at it at the same time.
Well, could we wait until that point?
Yeah, we could do it either way.
Just exhaust the golf, if it doesn't work out, I mean, I think we have a criteria that we wanna follow for
I
setting up
yeah.
the golf course.
Yeah, and
So
I'll admit,
exhaust
I
that,
did not,
and
I didn't look, I'll admit, I didn't go back through the contract, and, which is something that we need to do, and say, this is what we would like to see change, and we need to have the data as well for cost, so, I don't think there's anything else we can do tonight. I'm fine if we just look straight, try to figure out the golf course itself, and then if it looks like it's not gonna work, then think of something else.
Yeah,
it's
and,
gonna work. They applied for that.
well, the reason, I think, for me personally, the reason I wanna, focus on golf courses, we did do a survey, and 65% of the people that returned that survey said they want a golf course. Now, how we're gonna fund it, or how we're gonna get to that point, that's up for a lot of debate, a lot of questions, so we gotta do a lot of finding out. But I think the majority of the people in St. Mary's, the vast majority of the people in St. Mary's want it to be a golf course. And any other, I agree with Chuck, I say if we spend time now looking at other uses for the property until we've exhausted the option of the golf course, to me is just a waste of time. So, the attorney's looking at the contract, correct?
Well, so we were gonna update a contract
Yeah,
to exactly what we were,
which I haven't done.
well, I started the process, but,
And then the grant,
well, so I did, I looked into that, so the public grant, the one city is eligible, but there's a cycle, and it's, just was awarded not too long ago. The private stuff, there wasn't a whole lot of dollar amounts that were, available for a private.
and what is that cycle for that public grant?
It was August, so it'd be February, March, April, or May for the application period. So it's, I believe it was awarded in September.
All right, so I would say what we need to do individually, and then we could, when we get together, talk about it, is go through that draft proposal, make the changes that we think we
So
want to see.
what I was doing on the contract, I was taking that version he had, and I was basically not rewriting it, but putting it into an editable text version, because that was a scanned version, so that it could be easily, so I hadn't finished that process, I got sidetracked.
Okay, some sort of-
You got other stuff to do?
No, it wasn't even that, it's,
Oh.
so that's what I've been working on, and will continue if that's what you want, to have the contract looked at and then, city attorney. But he has to look at the final version, after you have gone through it and see how you want it structured. Most of that stuff is just boilerplate. So I'll get back on that, if that's my direction,
I'd like to see that,
okay?
just me.
Anything else on that today? Okay. Next item on the agenda is sidewalk repair. Not fun. And just, I see oiler truck repair, can we just do that directly after so that, because I think Chief's gonna talk to us about the Second Street, so follow through the next two. Go ahead.
So we've been talking about some repairs that are needed or requested for in front of the post office, some curb and gutter, sidewalk. And last week, there was one property owner that I wasn't sure about if they wanted to do the reimbursement, and then I got with them and they did. I just got a call yesterday, now they do not want to participate. So, one of the contractors, he said it's really difficult to pour a new curb and gutter without removing the sidewalk. You can't get a form in there, it's hard to match it up. He said he would do it, but his price went up. And the other contractor, he didn't have any issues, but he was the higher bid. I don't know what the answer is if I don't see them locking anything in right now with the prices, the way they vary, so.
So when we looked at it the other day, there's something that needs patched over there this year with whatever you'd use. And I said, make it so that it's safe, and let's revisit it after the first of the year in the new budget cycle.
I'm curious and educating here, Maurice, so if you could, on the whole sidewalk issue, so property owners are responsible for the sidewalks.
Right.
And is that a state statute?
Well, the statutes are in your packet.
Yeah.
The state gives the cities authority to make that the case, yes.
Okay, so we have
City
in
code, it
a
says that.
city code that says they have to. But in the recent past, have we waived the city code and paid for things that
So you
property
got,
owners should have been paying for?
so there's a variety of things that happened. One was the city commission came up with a sidewalk reimbursement program where if you were eligible, and by eligible it meant it looked like it was all busted up and it needed to be replaced, you could get $2 per square foot as a reimbursement. They paid for it up front. Bob inspected it, you folks approved it, check was written, okay? Then, in the meantime, there was a hybrid thing put together where the city commission identified some high traffic areas, pedestrian wise, and thought that they were of higher priority. And from there, they talked to the property owner. Of course, the property owner agreed to have it replaced. The city covered all the materials, including the concrete, and then one of the commissioners or more gathered a number of volunteers on a Saturday morning to replace that sidewalk. So the property owner in that case didn't pay anything. The city paid for the concrete, and the labor was donated by some nice people. Then the third type of project that has been going on would be something that the city just did. An example of that would be North Second Street and Mount Calvary Road that went up there for a couple blocks. Then, of course, the downtown ones that were part of that project when we did the streetlights and everything like that. And I guess there's a fourth type, is when there's a utility issue or something and the city tears up a sidewalk, like over on 8th Street in Alma, right, where that drainage project was. The sidewalk was not great, but we made it worse, so then the city just paid for that. But so there's four things that were going on. Now, I will point out that it kind of has mixed people up, because people say, I want the free version of the sidewalk and that sort of stuff, and they just have to come here and ask that, but the commissioners approved all that. So it was a deviation from what was required. I don't believe it was anything other than a potential political problem for them.
So we've set a precedent then by paying for these materials that the property owners should be paying for.
Well, they set a precedent by the reimbursement program, which 9 people participated in. They set a precedent by doing the high traffic areas. They thought it was so important that they didn't want to wait to have the property owner decide to do it. And then we set a precedent by just outright paying for certain projects for whatever the reason was. And then we've always had the precedent, if we break it, we fix it.
That one I understand.
We have to do that one.
Yeah, so let's go back to that North Second Street. That's the one right up. We did that.
Yes.
Why? I mean, I know I voted for it, so I really don't have an excuse, but why did we do it?
Well, part of it was curb and gutter. The residents there were requesting that curb and gutter be extended past those 3 houses that were recently built in the
Okay.
last few years. And then there's a lot of people walking in that area, up and down to school, church and stuff.
No, and the property owner didn't pay for any of that.
Correct.
So the city is always on the hook for the curb and gutter part, right?
Yes.
As I recall, we just expanded that work. It was a safety issue because it's a high, as I recall, it's a high traffic area with, there was no sidewalk on either side of the street.
No, I know the area, I
Yeah.
walk it a lot, but,
And that was the reasoning, and it's, it's, I think kind of downtown is similar, I don't think I was on the commission when that happened, but in any case, it's something that you want to look a certain way, it's high volume, and so you make an investment. And the statutes don't demand that we not pay, they
Make-
just
make it
give us the
available
option to,
That the property owners
Yeah.
abutting a sidewalk can be made, and our code does make make all of us responsible for cleaning the ice and snow, and then maintaining it and that sort of stuff.
But my point is, I think if we start doing it different ways, we're setting different precedents, and I don't think we should be doing that, because if a property owner is responsible for it, and the reimbursement, the partial reimbursement is fine, then I think the property owner should pay for it. And we don't, again, it goes back, in my opinion, we're burdening everybody in the city. So a block may have a perfect sidewalk, everybody's sidewalk is great, they take good care of it, but you're gonna help pay for somebody else's sidewalk that's in disrepair because they decided to grow trees in their front yard that had roots that tore up the sidewalk, so now you're gonna pay for theirs. To me, it's not right, it's not just, and I think we should avoid doing that, and put the burden back on the property owner if that's the ordinance or the statute.
what does the, I'm sorry, I know you put the statutes in here, but at the state level, what is the?
Well, so the statutes provide a framework on which you can have a policy, our policies and our code, that's also in the book. And so you can direct or order someone to put a sidewalk in, you can order them to have it repaired, and if they don't do it, the city does it and it's added to their taxes. You have that authority, but you also have the authority to do it yourself because someone believes it was a high enough priority for pedestrians or something like that. I'm not saying that it does happen, so it only leads to confusion on, like this particular project by the post office. That's part of the reason I think they may have backed out on it, is because right just across the alley was where that volunteer effort ended.
So I acknowledge your point, Gerard, you're right, we have set a precedent that we have paid for some sidewalks that we have the legal capacity to demand that people put in, that's true. And we can just make the decision not to do that again, but as things come up, then if they're put to a vote, they're put to a vote. I guess
Right.
maybe it's because I'm not initially, I'm from here now, I've been here for a long time. I'm not initially from here, it seems weird to me that people have to build their own sidewalks. I don't know if that's a Midwestern thing, or, I mean, isn't it,
No,
we do the roads, this is for the safety of.
But now, so when a new subdivision is put in, the property owners usually pay for the initial curb, gutter, and street, and then that's done through special assessments.
I guess the reason I mentioned it seems more like it's a public safety concern. We have sidewalks so that people don't walk on the roads. And so, I mean, I don't know, I'm not
No.
arguing that we rewrite the code, it just seems like an odd thing. It's
Well,
clearly
so-
serving the whole community.
When we moved into Lakeview, I inherited that assessment for a number of years, we
Yeah.
paid.
I think we did that too.
Yeah, and so my point is, I don't think it's just or right to put the burden on all the taxpayers, just to put in a sidewalk. Well, it's in a high traffic area, yes it is, I agree, but it's still, we have a set of rules in place or guidelines, and I think we need to follow them as best we can.
I would like to see some easier way of fixing some of this, though. There are certain areas, I think on Mission, where there's virtually no sidewalk, and then someone did participate, and so it's brand new, and then the next 50 feet is crumbling, and it's just like, if we're just relying on someone to take the initiative when it's not super easy to do that, I'm wondering if to Matt's point, I agree.
Well, that's
it's
the
a
other
public
side
safety
of this is, if we're looking for personal responsibility, that sort of thing, but we also want to minimize government overreach. We are nonetheless in a position, apparently, where we can demand that someone put a sidewalk in. Are we comfortable with that? It's his or her property, you must put a sidewalk in. Now, I would say the reason that exists probably is because it can be a safety thing. A little kid's walking down the street and on the sidewalk, it's reasonable to have a sidewalk. But that's why I see it's like it seems like an odd requirement to me. If it's a public safety thing, I mean, we maintain the roads for public safety. So you see what I'm saying? On both sides, it's a weird government thing, like you will put in a sidewalk. Well, I don't wanna put in a sidewalk.
I agree with you, Matt, I do agree with you. In that regard, I do agree that, you know, I mean, it could be construed as government overreach. In that case, then maybe do we need to look at eliminating the requirement for property owners and the city take on that function as they would streets or curb and gutter or sewer or water or anything else. I don't like seeing, you know, some people benefit at the
Right,
cost of
I
all the
acknowledge that.
taxpayers and other people.
But what we can see from the precedents, I think what we can read from these, other than just the facts, is that there's a certain hesitancy on the part of property owners to put in sidewalks, either because it's difficult or expensive or something, or they don't see the need. And that's why we clearly try to incentivize it, we being whoever, the city commission at the time, we incentivize it with this cost share thing, not required to do that by law. We incentivize it by getting volunteer groups together, not required to do that by law. We, the city, apparently saw a need for a sidewalk and said, well, how can we encourage people to do it? And the answer was by paying part of it, so.
But Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, did not some of the residents on North Second Street come in and ask that it not be extended to their property, the
Yes.
sidewalk?
Further north, they did not want a sidewalk.
So that block north of where it ends,
Mm.
some of those folks came in and asked, because they just didn't want people walking by their house, I guess. Or didn't want it, their yard was small enough and they would take away more of it or something, there's
They didn't want
various
the liability.
of maintaining it and, you know, cleaning the snow.
Well, I guess this was the dramatic thing. See, you came for something, the sidewalks. I think the immediate question though is what do we want to do in front of the post office?
For the curb and gutter.
And it sounds like minimal work that you can do for now on
We
that.
can patch it for now and wait till next year. And for sure, do the curb and gutter and,
It makes sense because the low bidder wouldn't be able to do it this year anyway.
yeah.
So there's no need to approve something that can't get done this year and he won't probably lock it in either.
Did the high bidder become the low bidder? No, okay. Cause you said the one was saying there's gonna be a price increase,
Yeah.
It's a low bidder.
but he's still low. He's still the low bid.
So
So
what
could
do
the
we
high
do?
bidder do that right now?
Just table
Or
it.
do you have to-
As of a couple weeks ago, he said he'd get it done this year.
So I mean,
About
if we,
about $8,000.
more,
No,
Compared to 5.
so it's
okay,
$3,000
but
more.
what's gonna stop him in January to say, oh, I went from 5,000 to 9,500?
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean,
How much is it gonna cost us to fix it, to patch it? for now?
Oh, minimal, less than $100.
Again,
Not.
we have to be,
Curb and gutter.
I wanna see us,
Curb and
oh,
gutter.
curb and gutter,
Yeah.
you're not talking about the, okay, 'cause I
Which is
apologize.
also bizarre,
Sidewalk's in pretty good shape.
I guess they consider the curb and gutter part of the road.
I guess.
Yes.
I just think we need to be consistent, that's my main thing, we need, across the board.
So let's say for today, just patch it, that makes sense. Table it for the actual repair, but it sounds like maybe we want to consider what we really wanna do universally with sidewalks so that we are clear. And frankly, I can see both sides of it. And I don't know, how do we wanna approach that? Just review these statutes and see if we want to change the code?
So when we did the sidewalk reimbursement program, we just checked out what other cities were offering. I think the city of Lawrence at one time was looking at taking that on, but when I Googled them the other day, they had some kind of program in place that wasn't that. But I think we just carry it over and we'll try to find out what other cities are doing. At the very least, you could look at the reimbursement program and be more aggressive with the reimbursement amount. Instead of $2, you could, increase that.
Do you know of any cities that do sidewalks? I mean,
Not off the top of my head.
okay.
I know I was reading a little bit in here, this was from a number of years ago, about, making it part of, laying out a plan for the replacement of some sidewalks. Like for instance, across the road from myself, there's a sidewalk there that essentially doesn't exist too. It's grassy, it's, mostly broke up, and when you walk on it, you don't really walk on cement, you walk on grass and weeds. So would it be in their best interest, to, if we're going to assess this to the citizens, and then I think it would also be a good idea to lay out a plan to say, locate where the worst kept sidewalks are, and somebody who's impartial, of course, who goes out to look at them, mark them down, lay out a plan of replacement, and then just address that with the homeowners, and so that they're aware that this is coming up. That would at least make them, it would be a surprise, hi, we're here, we're replacing your sidewalk today.
But we do have the authority apparently to demand
Yeah,
that
you can
people.
order folks to do it. What you're talking about, Richard, is like an inventory. The street department has done that before. They went around and looked at the sidewalks and rated them as like a 1 through 4, for that purpose. But if you're thinking about putting a route together, that would be the high traffic one as well.
However you prioritize it, I think is his point.
Yeah, that's something you have to look into. And then too, if you have this volunteer group that of men who are willing to help out, there's a way that you can cut costs down and help your neighbor out and, make a party of it, I don't know. I know I've helped with just about all those projects, those volunteer projects, and, you're there for a few hours in the morning, it's not really all that much work. Set up the forms, it's a pretty simple thing to do. You're there in the evening, set up the forms, you're back in the morning, pour the cement, it's, so it might be a good idea to consider,
City to tear out.
yes.
Yep,
city
city to tear out, then they come and form it up overnight, whatever, and then pour it in the mornings.
Not to beat this too hard, but where I live in Lakeview, we don't have sidewalks.
Our side.
The city takes over the sidewalks, do we then demand sidewalks at the cost
Well,
of the
I don't think-
Is there a
taxpayers?
is it a high pedestrian area?
Absolutely a high pedestrian area. There are
Many kids that
hundreds
down there.
of kids that live in Lakeview that are walking around there all the time. I know it's,
Well, my understanding of what Richard's saying is that, I think the point is, we need to decide how important it is for us to have sidewalks in the city, and then we need to decide what that means. It kind of seems to me like this board hasn't had much of a stomach for demanding that people put in sidewalks. That's what it really sounds like.
yeah, I agree
And so,
with
but we think there should be sidewalks, so we find different ways to kind of nudge people into doing it. And I don't know how big a thing it is, I only really notice it when I'm walking down the street and say, I kind of wish there was, that this sidewalk, I don't mind if there's not a sidewalk, but I just like when you start on one and then it disappears, whatever.
And then-
Expectations, so I don't know how big a thing it is, but we should probably decide what we want as a goal for sidewalks in the city, and then decide if we want, we just wanna demand that people do it, period, or if we give them a little bit more for the cost share,
Is that
program, or.
something we, for another night, I mean, do we table it and?
Oh, I definitely have to be carried over.
Okay.
And look at it, and I'll see if I can find another city that is, doing something
Yeah,
different,
that's a good idea, so how other people are
see if they run into any problems.
gonna say skin this cat, who built this sidewalk.
Just one last question, you said 9 total have taken advantage of the reimbursement,
Yeah,
or 9 this year?
No, 9 total. I made a list of
From
Bob and I.
2060, but my point is, if we were to start demanding that people do it, and say either you pay for it all, or we reimburse you for this part of it, that's the,
Nine sidewalks, so 2 of them were corner lots, so they had two sidewalks. So if you look at that in the memo I put together,
Surprising how
they're generally around $400 or 400, but then there's two of them that are, one's 1,100, one's 1,200. That's because they had big
That's
lots.
the reimbursement portion.
Yes,
Yeah.
the reimbursement portion is because they had a corner lot and they did both of them.
So, yeah, I guess let's carry it over, I'll save some of my questions.
It's
for-
Bob, he always talks too much. Are you calm over there, chief? Can we go out there? We'll be quick with the, I think, with the oil truck.
Right.
Alright,
So,
go on.
we finally got, some word back on that, and they diagnosed it and came back with an estimate to repair it, and, I think it was like $13,000 right now. And that's pending, I mean, it could go up, they could get in there and find more things. I think Maurice was suggesting we just wait till after the first of the year on that to maybe come up with some other options, or we just get it repaired after.
Yeah, you'd think you need to wait until the end of the year, because this is one that could balloon into higher costs. And so, here we go again, next meeting will be the end of the year budget estimates. And
Yeah.
don't need any surprises.
Until spring or something.
We used it all summer, from June, well, yeah, June 1st to the middle of September.
If we were to, at some point, seriously look into, contracting it out,
Hmm.
how much notice do they need?
Oh, generally over the winter time, you would want to contact them, January, February. And then another option I was discussing with Maurice was, like skip a year, don't do any oil and put that money towards the purchase, the new oiler and the materials money towards
So many years ago, the street department apparently did that.
Yeah.
They only did streets 3 out of every 4 years, and that 4th year was a catch-up year on certain things and finances. And that happened well before I was here, so I didn't know about it.
How do you think the streets would do?
Well, we still have patchwork to do, but, we could catch up.
Depending on the winter and things like
Yeah.
that?
It almost seems like you could do that, 3 out of 5 or whatever. If you took more than just 1 year off every X number of years.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable how fast they deteriorate.
Once we change the speed limits, that won't happen.
Yeah.
Alright, so what, I guess right now,
Just table?
that? I don't know. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, next item on the agenda. TAP, or T, stands for something,
Technical Engineering Assistance Program.
thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. So, to recap, in the beginning of the year, we spoke about 2 questions. One was the question of the four-way stop at Mount Calvary and Second Street due to increased vehicle traffic and also pedestrians from the new sidewalk.
As well as the, together.
Oh, wow, nice.
Well done.
I don't know if I'm gonna vote for you.
And seeing if we could find some way to overall residential speed limits, as in maybe the entrance is putting a sign that would disclaim that the residential speed limits were lowered. And so we've investigated it at you all's request, and that started. So to kind of recap a little bit, because I'll summarize it the best I can, a lot of twists and turns. We did check with Irvine, his guidance for the lowering of the residential speed limits per the statute was some form of either investigation, traffic investigation, or engineering. So we did the TAP rate application. We had included that in there along with the second Mount Calvary stop sign. When we finally got approved and they were giving us the overview on what they would be able to do, they actually said the speed study is not something that they do. But they would do the four-way stop question. So they investigated that. I began to investigate, okay, well, if they can't do it, who can? The answers varied quite a bit. I actually reached out to the county because they did something similar. The county said they just kind of did it on their own standards. Irvine was persistent, you know, to lower speed limits, we need something concrete, something that justifies it. The engineering firm that was doing the four-way stop said they've never heard of any kind of study citywide for lowering speed limits. And then we reached out to Pat Cox, and Pat Cox said, yes, they've been done in the past. So there's several different answers on that, so that's still something. Either way, that didn't fall into the TAP, so if we still have to look at where we're gonna go from there with the actual speed study, is that something that we're gonna try to reapply for just specific roadways like Second Street or 8th Street, those are ones that get common complaints.
So just to clarify,
Yeah,
I always use the word study, but I believe the statute says investigation.
Yeah.
Which
We
means,
have to have an investigation?
well, you're required to do it by statute.
Yeah.
But not a study. A study's entirely, you know, can be an entirely different, I just want to throw that out there, that chief here could be maybe qualified to do that investigation.
Right,
But we have to have the city attorney agree, because
Yeah.
he's the one that'd be prosecuting, and also traffic engineering assistance program.
Yeah.
That's what the TX stands for.
yeah, so city attorney felt without something more than just what I could provide. We'd fall into a situation where the, you know, a speeding ticket's gonna get contested, or if we, you know, stopped El Chapo and then the speeding ticket got thrown out, then the criminal case would get thrown out, like there would be some legal potential that could open up. But now on the second and Mount Calvary four-way, I think Maurice did email you, it's like a 12-page. A lot of it is the analytical. In summary, basically, they recommended it become a four-way stop, and that was because of sight distance. They actually, when I spoke to them on the phone, they were actually pretty, the sight distance especially, which I know if you've ever come southbound, yeah, you know about that sight distance.
but they did their study on a Tuesday. Why did they pick a Sunday? You know, if they wanted traffic, I mean, if they wanted numbers of vehicles.
Well,
No, it wouldn't change the sight distance, but they, when I read this, it said that they, based on traffic, we didn't need it. But they did it on a
Yeah.
Tuesday, probably.
yeah, but they caught 2 people going north of 75 miles an hour.
Yes, yeah.
So,
We're
did that get relayed to you on a Tuesday? So,
On a Tuesday, okay.
And even with our current speed limit, that's speeding, right?
That is. But yeah, so they recommend the four-way stop with the stop ahead signage, and everything else that would come with it, us advertising it beforehand and giving some leeway, so that's kind of.
What was the thing about the southbound stop sign on Second Street needs to be moved?
They did recommend, because of the sight distancing, moving it, let me see if I only have the summary here.
Further south?
They felt there was, yeah, they felt there was a minimum that it should, south would be approximately 15 feet to provide sightline clear, yeah, because of fencing instructions. Okay.
And I agree with that, because I come there every day and I always inch out past that stop sign, just so I can try and look up Mount Calvary.
Yeah, so yeah, there's that, we have a answer, the speed study is more of a prickly situation.
Well, so you know, one of the concerns was the elevation of stopping during inclement weather. I assume they were taking that into consideration and, you know, still recommending it, so that was just one question that, you know.
Yeah, that was a question that I had for winter weather, because I mean, I grew up going to school driving there, using that almost every day. And I know when there's inclement weather or icy roads, especially if you're going westbound and you're trying, and you stop and your wheels will just keep spinning. So that, I mean, that's the only objection that I see with this. The other question is, you know, they had 4 criteria which they were considering the four-way stop, and there was, is it just they needed 1 criteria to fit that, to put a four-way stop in there, or, because three out of the 4 failed
Right.
to meet that criteria. So do you need all 4 of them, or just one of those?
No, just one of
Just
the,
one, okay.
just one of them, yeah. Because I believe it was like traffic number, visibility, I forgot, you know, something with left turns. So, yeah.
My only concern would just be during the winter time when roads are icy and if you're trying to stop on that incline going up.
Yeah.
And I don't know
We'll
if
make
they
sure
address
they
that
get
at all.
out there, put that ice melt on or.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was one of us saying something, but.
So do we want, are we in a position where we can approve, installing that four-way stop
That's
sign?
what you want, as per the recommendations of the
Yeah.
We want a motion.
traffic,
Yeah, I'd say we probably need.
traffic engineering assistance program.
Traffic engineering,
Assessment program, is
yeah,
that
Traffic engineering assistance program.
assistance program.
I look
right,
it up.
well, do I have a motion to, install four-way stop at North Second Street and Mount Calvary Road in accordance with the recommendation from the TF study?
I so move.
Second. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'm opposed, I don't know what to do to that.
There's one opposed,
To say aye.
Nay.
so the, nay,
Yeah.
the motion carries,
4-1, so
4 to
there's one
1.
nay, four, okay.
one nay.
1 out of 4.
Can we talk about the speed limit for a second?
That seems a little weird to me, I mean, how did we set it in the first place? What makes that so
It's statute guided unmarked is 30 miles an hour unless otherwise posted.
is it ours? I mean, we have is there some sort of general state or
Mhm.
county guidance that, okay,
Yeah, basically.
and we're not allowed to be more restrictive on that?
So
At city
that's
level?
where there's some debate because when I spoke with the engineers, the way the statute reads, we're almost like, it says local authority may determine and declare a reasonable and safe maximum limit thereon which, but the hangup is really how the city attorney's feeling about it. I mean, that's really.
Chief, I've always thought with laws,
Mhm.
cities can be more restrictive, they just can't be less.
Mhm.
So, I mean, the good example from, during my days in law enforcement was domestic violence. You know, the state says an officer, if they have probable cause, they shall arrest.
Mhm.
A city can't come in and say, turn that shall into a may. They, if the state says it's shall, then it's shall, and you can't. So,
So they allow
Bernard
you,
is not comfortable with this without
well, the statutes allow the city to do that after an investigation has been conducted. It's the investigation that he wants to have an actual engineer, Pat Cox or someone that he's familiar with, establish.
What is I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it.
What is an engineer gonna determine that he would know better than the chief?
Well, I think they have these stamps that, that
I
assume liability.
I understand it, but, I mean, I would think that chief and his officers would know better than any engineer if we have an issue with it.
Well, if it's a structural issue or something like that. He's just wanting to, I think, play it safe and be smart about it and
Legal bullshit.
I'm sorry?
Is your microphone on?
It was.
Let me ask you, Chief, do you think that the speed limit should be lowered in
Yes.
certain, okay, so if
And
you.
what I would consider my study is actually a completed document with rationale.
Yeah.
But then we hit that snag that we wanted to answer.
And you say, have you done that or have you not done it? Yeah, so I would like, please, I think it would make sense, I would rather rely on the input of the person enforcing the traffic and common sense, which I'm convinced we need to lower the speed limits in certain places. And figure out what is the basic minimum standard that the attorney feels comfortable with going along with what's already a professional
Okay.
study input.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, do we need to invite the city attorney to come talk, come tell us why? I mean, does he not think that the chief is capable of?
I think this came about from just merely reading the statute and then we had a discussion. Since we've had that discussion, you sat through those meetings and the engineers that he dealt with wouldn't do the study because they didn't think it could be done, but they did push him in directions where he could find information and put together something that might be acceptable. So we just haven't closed the loop on it. We can have him review that document, and if there's issues with it, then yeah, we can invite him.
Yeah, let's try to do it
Review
as,
your
sort
investigation.
of minimally as possible, since you've already done the work. And I mean, if you were saying to me, no, I don't think it really needs to happen, that would be one thing, but.
I agree.
Alright, any other questions? Thanks for sticking around, Jim. Next item on the agenda is a C-FLIP update.
The update is that the bid opening will be in this room on Thursday, November 30th at 1 o'clock. The results of that will be presented to you at the December 5th meeting.
Any questions on that?
And the plans are out here. They sent us a copy. They do it all online these days, but in case somebody wanders in, they sent over a copy.
The next item on the agenda is employee health insurance work session.
We'd like to have a 6 o'clock work session before the next regular meeting and have the consultant present his results on what he has found.
Okay, and that's, I mean, I think that's a good idea. That's really important because it impacts whether or not we can drive down those costs to make it easier for us to increase pay, which we need to do.
So 6 p.m. That Tuesday night in this room. 21st.
Thanksgiving week, is that what you mean? That one?
Meeting's an hour.
Well, it will be carried over to the regular meeting, 6:30.
Whatever you.
Does he, yeah, how much time does he need?
Well, he's preparing a comparison of what we have now and, you know.
That may take a while, I guess.
Yeah. The consensus for that?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
The item K, floodplain technical assistance program report.
I would say that the report is in. This is the point where this process can stop by taking no action. If you want to take action, there's a letter of intent to sign. The only issue is, I don't think there's been enough time since the report has been issued to try to go down that road because it requires more knowledge.
And we would need to do something by the 17th of November, which to me is, I'm personally not. We've been
Correct.
talking over the past several meetings about how we should be a little cautious when we want to spend millions of dollars.
So I just recommend you table it.
Yeah, the other thing that's, in case someone is very interested in moving forward with the project, a thing to note is, correct me if I'm wrong, we'll have an opportunity to do this again next year. It's not as though if we don't take action now, we don't have the opportunity to get this.
Another commission can pick this up if they want to. You don't have to do anything at this point.
If we do nothing, it just goes away
It
for now.
sits in limbo. As the engineer said, so technically, the people who drain into College Creek all contribute to the issue down there. They could themselves put together a drainage district that could do something like that. Now, that's not gonna happen, but to answer your question is, yeah, I think the thing to do right now is take no action and let a future commission revisit it. There just isn't enough time between now and Friday to sign a letter of intent that would obligate, large sums of money.
Yeah, I don't think there's a consensus that we would want to do that anyway.
And just refresh me, if you could, how much have we spent to date on this project?
I don't remember, I have it written down, but I haven't looked at it recently.
It's a significant, it was to do feasibility studies,
Right,
it's
it
a
was.
significant amount, but we haven't lost it, I think is the point here. So it's not as though if we don't act now, all that is wasted. It's still,
It's still, another commission could take it up next year, the next cycle, or they could, 5 years from now. The only thing that would need updated would be if they issue a new flood insurance rate map and stuff like that. So it's pretty simple, I think, there's not enough time to take action.
Those are all the agenda items, reports.
I have been following up on the nuisance issues that have been pending for a while. So tomorrow, Thursday's paper, the last two resolutions are gonna be published, and after that, that sets in a timeframe that allows us to hand deliver notices. So on one of the, locations, that person's been scheduled or just had quadruple bypass surgery, and that extension probably won't be met. On the other two, we've been talking with back and forth on occasion, and there has been some progress, but, probably they're not completed. So the next step would be to, in our code book would be to issue get it published, and then give them a 10-day notice to comply. And then if they don't comply, the city does it or hires someone to remove it, those costs get put on that property owner's taxes. My preferred route would be to issue the 10-day notice and ask if we can help them fix this, because either way, the city property, people were gonna go on their property and take it, but one way it would be with their consent and we'd be helping them. So that's where we're at.
So it would, is it Mr. Martell, who's it, that
Ron?
Ron, so that's, yeah, he won't meet that 90-day. So we're just gonna extend that, or?
We can definitely, yeah, his resolution has been already published for a while now. I could deliver the notice to him through the mail or whatever and do the same thing there, and we could incur the costs and time to clean up his property. He wouldn't be there, of course. So.
Well, I mean, the option of asking him if he would like help seems reasonable.
Yep.
And it's the same, we can't, if we're, it's sort of like the sidewalk thing, I guess, if we have certain rules and standards, they're there for a reason, and unless we decide those don't make any sense, we should really enforce them as best we can. I mean, obviously, we don't want to cause, but if he needs help, then this is the mechanism by which we can provide it.
Sure. And we'll follow up with
I
that.
agree.
We'll go through the process, and we won't go on anybody's property. We'll, I mean, after we deliver it, and then we'll just ask them if we can help, and then if they say no, we'll just come back to the next meeting, and I'll have the city attorney review my documents again, and then we'll do it.
So we would like this to be as cordial as possible, but the standards need to be met. Anything else?
We followed up on the event insurance idea, that we requiring that for, Paul Diamond issues and that sort of stuff. The way our insurance is structured, we do not need that to protect the city. The people putting on the events are not under our insurance requirements. We are looking at getting some language from our insurance carrier to add to our application so that people know that they're not covered by the city's insurance. But then, by the same token, they don't have to get anything extra. It's the same process, no one's burdened. So we did that. Andrea had a couple items, employee dinner and then the holiday issues.
Yeah, so on the employee dinner, we have reached out to both Mexican restaurants in town, El Corral and Casa Fernandez, and actually I think they both came in at the same, so I didn't hear today which way we're going, but we are going with one of those. And we also have the frozen drink machine locked down, so that's what I have on the employee dinner. And for the holidays this year, in 2021, Christmas Eve landed on a Friday and Christmas Day was on Saturday, so we got that Monday off. And last year they were both on Saturday, Sunday, so we had Friday and Monday off to observe. So this year we are curious, since Christmas Eve lands on Sunday, if we could have Tuesday off, because we don't have a day off for Christmas Eve. And instead of taking the Friday and then having a break before Christmas, that is what staff is asking.
So Monday or Tuesday?
Yeah.
Correct.
Monday we would already have off,
Yeah.
and if we could have Tuesday off.
Would that be the same thing for Bakers?
Yes.
It would, but like we get a full day in the employee handbook for Christmas Eve, but we don't for New Year's Eve, so if you wanted to give us that off as well, we would happily take that, but we were just asking about Christmas.
Alright, there's no, I'll have a little write-up in the next
Well, it
meeting.
makes sense to me that you should have the same for both.
So moved, alright.
What's the point, come in for, take Friday too, just kidding.
Okay.
So do we need to?
No, at this point, no, because there's still time, we'll have something in the next meeting, so we put in the
I mean, does
calendar.
that make sense? Just do the same for both.
This issue's come up 3 times recently, and we might have something just to put in the employee handbook, propose a change. It's not that critical, but it would clear things up for people looking at it. Thank you.
2 weeks off.
Richard, you're up.
Bye.
It's that time of day, Richard.
We'll put it in the minutes.
Oh, it's up to you. You need to make the minutes for next,
We'll make it minutes, on the next agenda will be a resolution thanking Richard Benson for his time.
You have to.
well, we're done with the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.